In October 1347, 12 Genoese trading ships drifted into the Sicilian port of Messina. The townspeople gathered at the docks, expecting goods from the east. But as the ships drew closer, a dreadful silence hung over them. No sailors stood on the decks calling out greetings. When authorities boarded the vessels, they were met with a horrific sight. Most of the crew were dead or dying. The survivors were covered in black boils that oozed blood and pus. These were the death ships, carrying a pestilence that would change the world. This plague, later known as the Black Death, did not begin in Europe. Its journey started years earlier, deep in the arid plains of Central Asia. Historians believe the bacterium, Yersinia pestis, lived for centuries in populations of rodents like marmots, largely isolated from humans. But in the early 14th century, something changed. Climate shifts may have forced infected rodents and their fleas into closer contact with people. The vast Mongol Empire, which controlled the Silk Road, had connected east and west like never before. It was a highway for goods, ideas, and disease. By the 1330s, reports of a terrible plague emerged from China. The pestilence began to travel west from Asia along the trade routes. It moved relentlessly, carried by merchants and soldiers. By 1346, it had reached the Golden Horde, a Mongol army laying siege to a key trading city. That city was Kaffa, a Genoese colony on the Crimean Peninsula. It was a vital link in the trade network between Europe and Asia. The siege dragged on, but then the Mongols' greatest weapon became their greatest weakness. The plague erupted within their own camp. According to one contemporary account, the Mongol leader, Janabeg Khan, was forced to call off the siege, but not before one final, desperate act. In an act of what some call early biological warfare, he ordered his men to load the plague-ridden corpses of their comrades onto their catapults. The bodies were launched over the city walls, raining down upon the defenders. According to the account, the disease was now inside Kaffa. As the disease spread within the walls, the Genoese traders abandoned the city. They fled to their ships, hoping to escape the pestilence. They sought to outrun the pestilence, but it was a futile effort. They were already carrying the disease with them, bringing it into the heart of the Mediterranean. Their first major stop was Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire. Within weeks, the great city was ravaged by the plague. From there, the infected ships sailed on, spreading the disease to ports across the Mediterranean like a string of falling dominoes. And so, in October 1347, they arrived in Messina, Sicily. The Black Death had officially reached the shores of Western Europe. The Sicilian authorities quickly ordered the ships away, but it was too late. The plague was already ashore, likely carried by rats and their fleas. From Sicily, it spread to the Italian mainland. Cities like Pisa, Genoa, and the magnificent Florence were hit with unimaginable force. By January 1348, it was in Marseille, France. From this major port, it advanced inland, following rivers and trade routes. No one understood how it spread. They blamed poisoned wells, unfavorable alignments of planets, or the wrath of God. The real culprits were microscopic: a bacterium, carried by fleas, which in turn were carried by the black rats that infested every corner of medieval life. The symptoms were swift and terrifying. High fever, vomiting, and chills were followed by the appearance of the telltale buboes. These were painful swellings of the lymph nodes, usually in the armpits, neck, or groin, which turned black as the tissue died. This was the bubonic plague, but there were deadlier forms. The pneumonic plague attacked the lungs and spread through coughing. And the septicemic form, where the bacteria entered the bloodstream, caused death within hours, often before any symptoms could even develop. The speed of the disease was breathtaking. By the end of 1348, it had crossed France and Spain and had arrived in England. Within 5 years, it had swept through almost all of Europe, from the Mediterranean to Scandinavia, from Britain to Russia. The very fabric of society began to disintegrate. Doctors and priests, who tended to the sick, died in huge numbers. Fear shattered the bonds of family and community. People abandoned their sick loved ones, sometimes leaving them to die alone. The Italian writer Boccaccio wrote, "Brother was forsaken by brother, nephew by uncle, sister by brother, and oftentimes husband by wife." The sheer number of dead was overwhelming. Cemeteries filled up, and authorities resorted to digging massive plague pits. The chronicler Agnolo di Tura of Siena described the horror. "I buried my 5 children with my own hands." He continued, "And so many died that all believed it was the end of the world." For many, it truly was. In the face of this apocalypse, people reacted in different ways. Some adopted a grim hedonism, living only for the moment. Others turned to extreme religious piety. Groups of flagellants appeared, marching from town to town, whipping themselves to atone for humanity's sins. They believed the plague was a divine punishment and that their self-inflicted suffering could appease an angry God. Desperate for an explanation, many sought scapegoats. In one of history's darkest chapters, Jewish communities were falsely blamed for poisoning wells. This led to horrific pogroms across Europe. Thousands were tortured and murdered, despite the Pope issuing orders to protect them. Physicians were helpless. Their treatments, based on the theory of miasma or bad air, were useless. They tried bloodletting, lancing buboes, and burning aromatic herbs. Nothing worked. The plague burned through the population, seemingly at random, taking the rich and poor, the pious and the sinner alike. By 1351, the first and most devastating wave of the plague began to subside. Europe was left stunned, shattered, and irrevocably changed. The death toll was staggering. Modern historians estimate that the Black Death killed between 30% and 60% of Europe's population. In just a few years, an estimated 25 to 50 million people died in Europe alone. The total death toll across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East was immense. The world that emerged from the shadow of the plague was profoundly different. The massive loss of life had unexpected consequences. With so many dead, there was a severe labor shortage. For the first time, peasants and laborers had bargaining power. They could demand higher wages and better conditions. The old system of serfdom, which tied them to the land, began to crumble. This shift in economic power contributed to social unrest, like the English peasants' revolt of 1381, but also to a rising standard of living for survivors. The authority of the Church was also questioned. Its inability to stop the plague or even explain it shook the faith of many. This questioning of established authority helped sow the seeds for the religious and cultural transformations of the coming centuries, like the Renaissance and the Reformation. The psychological impact was immense. Art and literature became preoccupied with death and mortality, reflecting the trauma of the survivors. The Black Death was not a one-time event. The plague would return in waves for centuries, though never again with such devastating force. It took Europe's population nearly 200 years to recover to its pre-plague levels. The memory of the great mortality was seared into its consciousness. From a single bacterium in a Central Asian rodent, a chain reaction was set off that helped dismantle the feudal system and reshape a continent. The Black Death stands as a terrifying reminder of how a microscopic organism can bring human civilization to its knees. It reveals the fragility of our societies and the profound ways in which disease can alter the course of human history. The world was forever changed by the plague, which accelerated the end of the Middle Ages and the dawn of the modern era. The survivors inherited a new world, one full of both opportunity and the haunting memory of the Great Pestilence. It is a story of unimaginable horror, but also one of resilience and transformation, proving that even from the darkest ashes, a new world can be born. The Black Death was a crucible that forged a new Europe, but it was far from the last time humanity would face a deadly pandemic. How societies respond to these crises defines them for generations. The story of the Black Death is a lesson written in millions of graves. To see how another civilization faced a different kind of existential threat, subscribe to World History Tales for more stories from our shared past.